Imagine being a high school outcast. Not because you're a delinquent, and not because you're a nerd, but because your one true passion in life is a secret you guard with a crushing sense of fear. This is the quiet, pathetic, and lonely life of Wakana Gojo. To his classmates, he's just a tall, awkward shadow who barely speaks, a ghost who haunts the corner of the classroom until the final bell rings. But in the solitude of his home, surrounded by silk, thread, and porcelain, he is an artist. His entire world revolves around one thing: creating traditional Japanese Hina dolls. Ever since his kind grandfather introduced him to their timeless beauty, Gojo has dedicated every waking moment to mastering the craft. His dream isn't fame or fortune, but to one day become a kushirashi, a master craftsman, just like the man who raised him. He lives and breathes this art. While other boys his age are chasing girls or playing games, Gojo is chasing perfection, spending his days after school in total solitude, obsessing over every stitch, every delicate brush stroke on a doll's tiny face, and every fold in a miniature kimono. He finds more comfort in the silent company of his creations than in the chaotic world of his peers. But this passion is also his prison. This secret that gives his life meaning is also the source of his deepest trauma. When he was just a child, the girl he considered his best friend discovered his love for dolls. He showed her his favorite one, his eyes full of innocent pride, only for her to recoil in disgust. A boy who likes dolls? That's gross. That one word, gross, became a brand on his soul. It shattered his confidence, twisted his passion into something shameful, and locked him in a cage of social anxiety. Now, years later, he lives by a single, painful rule: never, ever let anyone find out. He keeps his head down, avoids eye contact, and has completely given up on the idea of ever making friends, convinced that to be known is to be rejected. And then there's Marin Kitagawa. She is, in every conceivable way, Gojo's polar opposite. She is the sun, the absolute center of the classroom's solar system. When she walks into a room, the energy shifts. She's stunningly beautiful, a fashionable gyaru with pink-tipped hair, perfectly manicured nails, and an infectious laugh that seems to draw everyone into her orbit. She is never alone, always surrounded by a crowd of friends who hang on her every word. She is loud, confident, and completely unapologetic about who she is and what she loves, openly gushing about her favorite anime characters and the latest video games she's playing. She exists in a world of color, laughter, and acceptance. A world so alien to Gojo that he might as well be observing her through a telescope from another planet. But fate, as it often does in these stories, has a funny way of colliding worlds. One afternoon, just 2 months before summer vacation, Gojo's trusty old sewing machine, a relic from his grandfather, finally gives up. With a sad puff of smoke, it dies, right in the middle of a delicate project. Panicked and on a deadline, he's forced to do the one thing he dreads: bring his doll project to school. After the final bell rings and the last of his classmates have filtered out, he creeps into the silent, empty home economics room. It feels like a crime scene. He lays out his tiny, intricate materials, his large hands moving with a grace and precision that betray his clumsy social demeanor. For a moment, he's at peace, lost in his craft, the rhythmic hum of the school's sewing machine, a temporary comfort. And that's when the door slams open. Marin Kitagawa, a whirlwind of energy and noise, comes bursting in, having forgotten her phone. Gojo's heart plummets into his stomach. His blood turns to ice. This is it. The moment he has spent his entire life trying to avoid. He's been caught. The most popular girl in school is staring right at him, at his dolls, at his gross, secret hobby laid bare on the table. He braces himself for the inevitable, the laughter, the disgust, the whispered rumors that will surely follow. This is the end of his quiet, invisible life. But the reaction he gets is not the one he spent a decade fearing. Marin doesn't laugh. She doesn't call him a weirdo. Her eyes go wide, but not with revulsion. They sparkle with pure, unadulterated excitement. She rushes over, not to mock him, but to praise him. "No way. Is this yours? You made this? That's absolutely insane. You're amazing at this." Gojo is left completely frozen, his mind unable to compute what is happening. This girl, this radiant being from another social universe, thinks his hobby is cool? Before he can even form a sentence, Marin's energy explodes. She whips out her phone, excitedly scrolling until she lands on a picture. It's a beautiful, purple-haired character in a revealing outfit from a risque video game called Slippery Girls 2. Her name is Shizuku-tan. Marin's face is flush with passion as she confesses her dream. Her absolute obsession is cosplay. She loves these characters so much that she wants to literally become them. She tells him she tried to make a Shizuku costume herself, but shows him a picture of her hilariously butchered attempt. A mess of crooked seams and safety pins. And then, looking at Gojo with a desperate, hopeful plea in her eyes, she does the unthinkable. She bows her head deeply, a gesture of utmost respect, and begs him, the lonely outcast, the silent ghost of the classroom, to use his incredible, secret sewing skills to help her achieve her dream. She wants him to create the perfect cosplay of Shizuku-tan. In that moment, Gojo's quiet, monochrome world is invaded by a chaotic, beautiful, and overwhelmingly colorful force of nature, and he has absolutely no idea what he's supposed to do next. Chapter 1. The secret project begins. For a moment, Gojo's mind is a complete blank. The request is so far outside the realm of his reality that he can't even process it. Marin Kitagawa, the girl who lives at the top of the school's social pyramid, is bowing to him, asking him for help. His first instinct, the one drilled into him by years of anxiety, is to say no, to run, to retreat back into the safety of his shell where no one can judge him. Making doll clothes was his private sanctuary. Making a real, life-sized costume for a person, for her, felt like broadcasting his weirdest secret to the entire world. He opens his mouth to refuse, to make an excuse, but the words get stuck in his throat. He looks at Marin, who is still looking at him with an expression of pure, desperate hope. He sees the passion in her eyes as she talks about Shizuku-tan, the way her entire being lights up when she describes the character she loves so much. And in that moment, he doesn't see the popular Gyaru. He sees a fellow craftsman, someone who loves something so much they want to bring it to life. He remembers his grandfather's words, "You have to put your heart into it, Wakana. That's what makes them beautiful." He looks at Marin's own failed attempt at the costume, a sad mess of crooked stitches and mismatched fabric, and his professional pride, the pride of a craftsman, begins to stir. He can't let a costume for a character she loves this much be made so poorly. With a deep breath that feels like it's being pulled from the very bottom of his soul, he looks her in the eye and says, "I'll do it." The words come out more seriously than he intended, his voice low and firm. Marin's face explodes with a joy so bright it's almost blinding, and she jumps up and down, screaming with excitement. Gojo has no idea what he's just gotten himself into, but for the first time in a long time, a tiny part of his gray world is filled with color. The next day, the true reality of his decision sets in. To create a perfectly tailored outfit, he explains to Marin, he needs perfect measurements. This leads to perhaps the single most terrifying situation of Gojo's entire life. Marin Kitagawa, in his room, after school, stripping down to her bikini. His mind short-circuits. He tries to be a professional, telling himself to think of her as a mannequin, a dress-up doll. But his brain refuses to cooperate. This isn't a doll. This is a living, breathing, incredibly beautiful girl, and he's supposed to touch her with a tape measure. He's so nervous his hands are shaking, and he can barely look at her, focusing on a random spot on his wall as he tries to remember the list of measurements he needs. Marin, on the other hand, is completely unfazed, treating the situation with a casualness that only makes Gojo more flustered. She poses and stretches, completely comfortable in her own skin, while Gojo mutters apologies every time the tape measure makes contact. The peak of his panic comes when he realizes he needs her inseam measurement. The very thought of measuring her inner thigh sends his mind into a full-blown meltdown. He tries to explain it, stammering and blushing, but Marin, with her usual bluntness, just lifts her leg onto a stool and tells him to get on with it. Somehow, through a haze of anxiety and professional focus, he gets through it, his notebook now filled with the most dangerous set of numbers he has ever owned. With the measurement secured, Gojo faces his next hurdle. He knows how to make the costume, but he knows nothing about the costume. He doesn't know the character of Shizuku-tan, and he certainly hasn't played the adult video game she comes from. Driven by his craftsman spirit, he knows he can't just replicate the look, he has to understand the character. So, he forces himself to buy Slippery Girls 2, a purchase so embarrassing he feels like the store clerk is staring into his soul. He spends the night playing the game, his face burning with shame at the risque content, but his focus is unbreakable. He's not playing for fun, he's studying. He fills pages of his notebook with screenshots and detailed notes, analyzing every frill, every ribbon, every layer of the ridiculously complex costume. He deconstructs how the fabric should fall, what materials would be needed for the corset, and how to achieve the perfect shape for the skirt. By the time the sun rises, he hasn't just played the game, he has reverse engineered a masterpiece. Now, armed with a complete blueprint, there's only one thing left to do: buy the materials. This leads them on their first real outing together, a trip to the fabric district in Ikebukuro. And here, the dynamic between them completely flips. In the halls of their high school, Marin is the confident leader, and Gojo is the silent follower. But here, in the world of silk, satin, and lace, Gojo is the expert. He navigates the stores with a quiet confidence, his hands expertly feeling the textures of different fabrics, his eyes scanning for the perfect shade of purple. He explains the difference between various types of lace and why a specific thread is necessary for strength, leaving Marin completely in awe of his hidden world of knowledge. They end the successful shopping trip by grabbing ramen together. As they sit across from each other, slurping noodles, Gojo feels a strange sense of normalcy he's never experienced before. He's just a boy, hanging out with a girl, talking about a project they're both passionate about. Marin looks at him, not as an outcast, but as a cool, skilled artist she can rely on. With bags full of fabric and their minds full of plans, they head home, ready to begin the real work. A secret alliance formed between two people from completely different worlds. Chapter 2: The Deadline from Hell. With all the materials gathered, Gojo returns to the sanctuary of his workshop, his mind buzzing with a newfound confidence. The awkwardness of the shopping trip has been replaced by the familiar focus of a craftsman. He lays out his detailed design plans, the pages filled with precise calculations and drawings. He looks at the high-quality fabrics he and Marin picked out together. For the first time, this impossible project feels real, tangible, and exciting. He's ready. He can do this. He texts Marin, letting her know he has everything he needs to begin. Her reply comes almost instantly, full of her usual bright and cheerful emojis. And attached to it is a single sentence that makes Gojo's blood run cold. "The cosplay event is in 2 weeks. I'm so excited." Gojo stares at his phone screen in disbelief. 2 weeks. 14 days. He does the math in his head, his mind racing. A custom outfit of this complexity, with intricate patterns, multiple layers, and delicate accessories, it should take a month at the very least. A professional would probably ask for more. He has less than half that time. The confident excitement he felt just moments before evaporates, replaced by a crushing wave of pure, uncut panic. The project has gone from a creative challenge to a desperate race against an impossible clock. The days that follow blur into one long, grueling cycle of pain and perseverance. Gojo's life shrinks to the space between his school desk and his sewing machine. The initial challenges are immediate. He quickly discovers that sewing for a full-sized human is a completely different beast than sewing for his tiny dolls. The sheer volume of fabric is overwhelming, and the corset pattern for the Shizuku-tan costume is a nightmare of complex curves and boning that he has to remake 3 separate times. His nights disappear. Fueled by cheap energy drinks and instant noodles, he works until his vision blurs and his fingers are numb, often falling asleep for an hour at his desk before waking up with a jolt to continue his frantic work. This punishing schedule begins to take a severe toll. At school, he's a zombie. He dozes off in class, his grades start to plummet, and he can't even hold a conversation because his brain is completely focused on stitch counts and fabric tension. The dual life he's trying to lead is unsustainable, and it's breaking him. The breaking point comes late one night, a few days before the deadline. He makes a critical mistake, cutting a piece of the expensive main fabric incorrectly. It's a costly, time-consuming error, and, in his exhausted state, it feels like a catastrophic failure. He slumps over his desk, completely defeated. The room is a disaster zone of fabric scraps, empty cans, and discarded threads. He looks at his reflection in the dark window and sees a failure. He's not a craftsman. He's a tired, pathetic kid who made a promise he couldn't keep. The weight of his exhaustion, his slipping grades, and his fear of disappointing Marin crashes down on him all at once. For a moment, he genuinely considers giving up, texting her that he just can't do it. Just as he's about to sink into despair, his phone buzzes. It's Marin, checking in. She asks him how it's going, her message full of cheerful encouragement. He doesn't reply, so she calls. When he finally answers, she can hear the exhaustion in his voice. Worried, she comes over to his house to check on him. When she sees the state of him, the dark circles under his eyes, the way he's slumped over his work, her cheerful demeanor vanishes. She sees the mountain of work, the sheer effort he has poured into this, and she's overwhelmed with guilt. She had no idea. She thought it would be fun, but she never considered the immense burden she had placed on him. She apologizes, her voice soft, telling him he can stop, that it's too much. But hearing her apology, seeing her genuine concern, has the opposite effect. It doesn't give him an excuse to quit, it gives him a reason to fight. He looks at her, then at the half-finished costume, and remembers the words of his grandfather echoing in his mind. If you don't put your heart into it, it's just a piece of cloth. He realizes he hasn't just been working out of obligation. He's been working with passion. He looks Marin in the eye and tells her, with a newfound resolve, that he's going to finish it. Not just because he promised, but because he wants to. He wants to see her wear it. He wants to see his creation make her happy. That moment changes everything. The exhaustion is still there, but now it's fueled by a blazing fire of creative passion. The final days are a frantic but focused push. Every piece begins to fall into place. The difficult corset is finally perfected. The intricate frills are attached. The final accessories are crafted with a master's touch. He pours every last ounce of his skill, his energy, and his heart into the costume. Finally, on the morning of the cosplay event, with the sun just beginning to rise, he makes the final stitch. He places the completed costume onto a mannequin. It's perfect. It's more than perfect. It's a masterpiece. It's a testament to his suffering, his dedication, and his incredible talent. Completely drained, but filled with an immense sense of pride, Gojo pulls out his phone. His hands are shaking slightly as he sends a simple, 3-word text to Marin. It is ready. Chapter 3, the first cosplay. The text is sent. It is ready. For Gojo, the world seems to stand still. He has poured every ounce of his being into this project, and now there's nothing left to do but wait. He doesn't have to wait long. Soon, there's an energetic knock at his door. He opens it to find Marin, her eyes wide with a mixture of nervousness and pure, uncontainable excitement. She practically vibrates with anticipation as he leads her into his room, where the Shizuku-tan costume stands waiting on a mannequin, looking like something straight out of the game. The moment Marin sees it, she's speechless. Her jaw drops. She slowly circles the costume, her fingers gently tracing the seams, her eyes taking in every perfect, painstaking detail. The frills, the corset, the accessories, it's all there, brought to life with a level of quality she never thought possible. Tears well up in her eyes as she realizes the sheer amount of work and passion Gojo poured into making her dream a reality. When she finally tries it on, the transformation is immediate. The clothes he slaved over, the pieces he almost gave up on, now fit her as if they were woven by magic. From Gojo's perspective, his creation is no longer just a collection of fabric. It has a soul. But the transformation isn't quite complete. Marin looks in the mirror, thrilled, but knowing something is still missing. The cosplay is perfect, but her face is still just her own. She needs Shizuku-tan's signature look. The pink contact lenses, the specific style of eyeliner, the exact shade of lipstick. She attempts to do the makeup herself, but her skills aren't up to the task. She's good at her everyday Gyaru look, but recreating a specific anime character's face is a whole different art form. As Gojo watches her struggle, he looks back at the reference photos on his computer. He analyzes the character's face, the subtle gradients of the eyeshadow, the sharp lines of the eyeliner, and he realizes it's the exact same process as painting the face of a Hina doll. The principles of shading, color theory, and delicate brushwork are all the same. Hesitantly, his voice barely a whisper, he offers to do it for her. Marin is surprised but immediately agrees, putting her complete trust in him. This leads to another moment of intense, awkward proximity. Gojo, armed with makeup brushes instead of sewing needles, leans in close, his focus absolute. His steady craftsman's hands, the same hands that were shaking just weeks before while taking her measurements, now work with deliberate precision. He's no longer a flustered teenage boy. He's an artist completing his masterpiece. When he's finished, he tells her to look in the mirror. What looks back isn't Marin Kitagawa anymore. It's Shizuku-tan, ripped directly from the game and brought into the real world. Their journey to the cosplay event is a new experience for them both. Gojo, now acting as her dedicated support staff, carries her enormous bag filled with props and emergency supplies. Marin, now fully transformed, walks beside him, turning heads wherever they go. But for the first time, the stares aren't filled with judgment or confusion. They are looks of pure admiration. When they arrive at the venue, a massive hall buzzing with energy and filled with hundreds of other cosplayers, Gojo feels like he's stepped onto another planet. But this is Marin's planet. This is her world. And when she makes her entrance, she becomes its queen. The reaction is instantaneous. A swarm of photographers, their cameras flashing like a thunderstorm, immediately surrounds her. They shout out the character's name, completely captivated by the stunning quality of her cosplay and the confident energy she radiates. Marin is a natural. She strikes pose after perfect pose, embodying the character she loves with every fiber of her being. She is living her absolute dream, and her face is alight with a joy so pure and infectious it's breathtaking. Gojo watches from the sidelines, hidden in the crowd, completely and utterly floored. The thing he made is causing all of this. After the main frenzy of the event is over, they find a quiet spot to rest as the sun begins to set. The adrenaline fades, replaced by a warm, contented exhaustion. And it's here, in the quiet aftermath of her triumph, that the emotional dam breaks. Marin turns to Gojo, her voice thick with emotion and her eyes filled with tears. She tells him, with a sincerity that cuts right through his anxiety, that it was the best day of her entire life, and it was only possible because of him. She thanks him, not just for the costume, but for making her dream come true. For Gojo, this is the moment his entire world shifts on its axis. All his life, his hobby was his secret shame. It was the gross thing that made him an outcast. But now, Standing in front of him is proof that his skill, the very thing he hid from the world, could bring another person this much profound happiness. As he looks at Marin, her face beaming with joy under the warm glow of the setting sun, her makeup slightly smudged by her happy tears, he has an epiphany. For the first time, he looks at another person and thinks, with a clarity that silences all his inner demons, that she is beautiful. Not just pretty, not just cool, but truly, breathtakingly beautiful. In that instant, the outcast doll maker's world was no longer small or gray. It was infinite. Their first project was a stunning success, but this is only the beginning of their story. What happens when Marin's boundless energy leads them to a new, even more complex cosplay? How will they react when they come face to face with Juju, a legendary cosplay idol whose skills are on a completely different level? And what happens when a simple trip for fabric turns into an unexpected day at the beach? The rest of the story will be told in part 2 of our Season 1 recap, coming soon. To make sure you don't miss it, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Let us know in the comments what your favorite moment from their first cosplay adventure was. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on Plot Point Zero for the rest of the story.